Well, hello there, and welcome to the next episode of the Mindful Investor Show. It's great to have you here with us. Steve and I are continuing to explore the single-family investment, realm, and we are in this season trying to understand what it takes to be successful in single-family investment. Luckily, my co-host Steve Rozenberg has deep expertise in this field, and he's failed and won a lot. So, but we want to unpack. We want to bring interesting people here who have done it or are doing it, unpack their experience, and see if our audience, you guys and girls, can learn something. And so can we as well. Steve, how's your day today?
It's good. It's good. We're down here in Houston, which is rare that you get to come down to Houston. We're in the headquarters of Empire. And special guest, we have my son, Jett, here. Jett,
hey, how's it going?
Thanks for being with us today. But yeah, we'll talk about, a lot of people were very interested hearing about the story of Jett buying a rental property when he was 14.
Oh, don't give it all away.
Well, okay.
There's a special reason why Jett is here.
There is a special reason.
Jett is 16, which is not defining him as an individual, but it is a factual statement. He's 16 years old, and he's not ashamed of it. Are you?
I am not.
He's not. Because you know what? He's probably ahead of a lot of people, including myself. He owns a rental property.
He does own a rental.
He
Yes.
actually owns a rental property. And this is exciting. But we'll get into the show in just a second. If you want to get more, find us on Facebook. We have this new mastermind real estate investment club. Would love to have you join this private group. Doing a lot of meetups. Would be great to meet you. And of course, if you need property management help, it's all Mynd.co, Mynd.co. But let's get into the actual introduction. So a little bit about Jett. Steve, I know you know your son, but I'm just going to give a quick overview. So he's 16, 10th grade, lives in Houston. His hobbies are cool, though. Drummer, knife flipper, rugby player, and he bought a rental when he was 14. Tell me, Steve, why don't we start with you? Our kids never want to do. In my experience, my oldest daughter is 10.
Yeah.
So she still likes daddy. But as they become teenagers, they want to be the opposite. So if you're a pilot, he builds, he goes into the ground.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because a lot of times I'll ask them, hey, do your friends at school know what I do? Or, yeah, you own a business. I say, they don't know about me being an airline pilot? No, doesn't tell them. So very much to your point, they kind of do go opposite. He seemed to resonate with the me owning a business and with Empire and being involved in investing. Maybe because he was around it, we would kind of include him in meetings and bring him into conversations. And when we're having I'm on the phone, in the car. He's kind of immersed in it, whether he wants to be in it or not. He's in the car. Yeah. And I think that's what kind of got him more understanding of it. Not like, hey, sit down and read this book. Initially, it was more just, I think, him listening to conversations is what started this whole process for him.
Yeah, so as the theme of the show, and you may be wondering what is this going to be about, well, I think it's about to help our children, our kids, to be successful in whatever they want to be successful in. But I think buying a rental property and becoming an investor can just help with whatever else they're going to do. Sure. It doesn't need to define them,
sure,
but it's great experience to inherit. I wish if we were in the United States, if I grew up in the United States and my dad was doing this, this would be, by now, I'm 40, which you think is super old. But in reality, it's super young, right?
I'm older than you, so I don't know.
You're also super young. But the point is, we have a whole life ahead of us. Had I had a couple, 4, 5, 7 paid off houses, by now I'll reinvest that money. I'd be, a lot better off than I am today. So, anyway, enough talking for us. I want to sort of understand, like, what was the first thing, was the first time, Jett, that you thought, maybe I should do this on my own?
Well, the first thing is, like my dad said, like, just being in the car with him and listening to the audiobooks. Half the time I wasn't really paying attention, but it was still going through in my ear and sitting in the back of my brain. So I've always had an interest in it and how you can do what seemed like a little work and get a lot of profit out of it. There's still work to be done. It's just different work. But it's... I don't know. I don't specifically know why. I just liked it.
As far as I remember, at 16 years old...
14.
14. Well,
yes.
like, oh, even 14. 14,
right.
You would get a job permit. So if you want to have your own money,
Yes.
like, I was 16 here, and what I had to do is get a permit from my school, work and flip burgers at a restaurant, which was great. I actually enjoyed it a lot. You could do it still. Yeah. But the point is, like, that was my option.
Right.
Like, go flip burgers, only like so many hours a week, and I had to come in on this time. Like, those are a lot of restrictions. So is this a way for you to make money and finance your hobbies? Or is this, like, did you think of it as future opportunity?
I thought of it as both. I thought of it as, well, now it's just the beginning point, so I can just, like, keep reinvesting it into savings, put some of it into my hobbies, and then later when, like, the houses or the mortgage is paid off and you're getting a lot more income from it, then it's more of an opportunity thing to do it now when I'm younger, so that I can have all that when I'm older.
Do you even know how smart it is? Like,
well, and
you will listen to this podcast a few years from now, and you'd be like, damn.
Well, you know, it's funny because when we first started having the conversations, and one of the things that I think was really helped, and it wasn't necessarily real estate related, is, you know, we had the Grant Cardone University for the sales team, and part of that, you got the whole package of stuff, and one of the things in there that he has is 100 ways to stay motivated. And so what I started doing, and they're little 5-minute segments, and so that was part of his chores, is every day he had to listen to a 5-minute segment of Grant Cardone, 100 Ways to Stay Motivated. And I think it just started I'm assuming it just started getting him more in
subliminal
gear.
messaging.
Yeah, he just started.
You programmed your kid.
Well, it's part of his chores. So
for success.
Yeah, and
then
you know, and you had said it when we started talking about, like, I started telling about a mortgage and taxes. Well, he doesn't know what any of that was, and he's like, "What's a mortgage?" So then now we had to go back to basics of, you know, a deed, a mortgage, buying a. So you really had to get very basic for him to understand appreciation, stuff that we kind of assume he had never heard those words before. He knows rental, cash flow, doesn't really know what they mean. So we had to say, okay, your mortgage is this. This is what a tenant will pay. The difference is what we get. That, you know, really had to get very rudimentary for him to understand it. And maybe he did or didn't understand it at the time, but he kept working through the process of trying to understand it, which I think was key.
Did you do it on purpose, Steve? Like, was your goal? And we'll come back to the first time you thought about buying a house. By the way, I didn't think I got an answer. But, like, did you do it on purpose? Like, did you want your son to buy a property at 14? Or was there, you just wanted to educate him? Like, what was your end goal?
No, I mean, actually, he came to me and said that he wanted to buy a rental property. It was not my. I mean, obviously, everybody would want their child to be, you know, successful and carry on buying something that I'm in, real estate. But no, he actually was the one who came to me and said, "Dad, I want to buy a rental property," and I was just like, what? Like, how do you even know about that?
So let's go unpack that moment. Like,
okay.
Maybe it'd be interesting for me and our listeners to hear, like, what was the pivotal point for you? What was the trigger for you?
I don't really think it was a trigger or, like, anything that just kind of caused it to snap. It was just a steady thing over time, and then I was like, I guess I'll just ask him and tell him that I want to buy a property.
So you were thinking about it.
Yeah,
you were brewing it.
Yeah, it had been stirring in my mind for a couple months.
And I think, you know, he and I had talked about it, and it was, you know, he had the money in savings that he had saved, which I didn't know he had that much, but he did. But, you know, then his thoughts, what he said to me is, well, it's not going to make anything sitting in a savings account. So he was smart enough at the time to realize that he didn't really know that it was called a return, or But he knew that it was not going to make him any money just sitting in a savings account.
Let me ask you this: on the savings account, personal interest. How old were you when you had your savings account first?
I don't quite remember exactly.
So
how old
that
I was.
young?
I think he had it. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, we had opened it when he was young.
Like how young?
I mean, probably like 3. You know, I mean, yeah. I mean,
3?
we started at savings. You know, you get birthday money and you get this, and you know, we'd always put money. You know, we had like some he
what
could
I gotta
have and a ratio. And that's actually, you know, speaking of that, that's what he does with his cash flow. He has to divide it. He gets 60% he can use, and 40% goes back in to save for another rental or whatever. So of his cash flow, he gets some that he can use, and he gets some that no matter what, it goes reinvest back in.
So let's talk about now that you've had an ask, like, hey, can we do that together? I listened to your podcast on Bigger Pockets, and sort of I know some of this, but I want to unpack this for the audience too. There's more to buying a property than just wanting to buy it. There's a lot of people who listen to us who want to buy a property who can't or won't, or like there's a lot of blocks. It's complicated.
It is.
And to me, the first thing I think about it is down payment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, have to have that. So you had some savings. Was that enough to?
No, definitely not. I ended up going and splitting it with my parents.
Splitting. So they gave you part of it, and you had part of it.
We didn't give him part of it. We partnered with him and invested part with him.
Tell me more.
So, you know, we had the discussion, and he didn't have enough. He had like $10,000.
$10,000.
And so it was like, that's not enough. And so, and, you know, and I don't know how much he remembers of this, but it was like, well, how do I get more? How do I make it? And I'm like, well, you need about 20 minimum, you know, for the house.
For in Houston.
In Houston, yeah.
Houston.
Got it,
Houston,
yeah.
right. He's like, you know, and I'm like, you need about a minimum of 20, you know, not counting if there's a make ready that needs to be done or anything like that. And he was like, well, that's going to take me forever. I mean, I'm 14 and this is what I have. And I'm like, well, yeah,
life.
I agree. It's going to take you forever, you know? And then the one thing he asked me that I remember is he said, you know, well, how can I do it? You know, how do I do it? And I thought that's a pretty smart question, right? Because he's actually asking how instead of, you know, that's not fair or whatever. And that's when we kind of went down the path and it was like, well, you can partner, you know? And that's when we started unpacking the thing of, well, you know, would you partner with me? Well, what's the deal? You know, and so we had to talk through the deal. And of course, first I had to explain to him how a rental property pays money, you know, because again, I go back to if I was a young kid, you know, growing up in Los Angeles and my parents had the ability to buy me 10 houses, right? No offense, but you and I probably would not be sitting here right now. But, you know, if he can get that now, 30, 40 years from now, I mean, where will he be, right? And so my thoughts were if I can keep, you know, I don't want to give him all the answers, but I want to have him understand the dynamics of owning a rental property, the cash flow, the appreciation. So I had to explain to him that, you know, how you make the money. Of course, he's thinking cash flow of what he's going to make in lieu of maybe getting a job or whatever he wants to do with it. But I'm trying to explain to him, like, look, there's more to the story here. Like, this is for your future, and this is going to go up in value. So I had to explain why is it going to go up in value. And I remember we sat down on the kitchen table one day, right, and I drew a map, and I showed him what appreciation does on the East Coast and West Coast of the U.S. and the Midwest and all this. And I wrote all these numbers down and showed him, kind of walked him through the numbers. And then it was probably a month or two, or a couple weeks later, I look up, when I went into his room, it was actually up on his wall.
Still is.
Still is, on his wall. And I was thinking, wow, like he actually listened.
Give us a shot for this podcast. We'll put it in the show notes or something. I think it'd be cool for the listeners to actually take a look at it.
Yeah, a screenshot, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not the best artist in the world for the record, but I did a pretty good job.
You can't be best at everything, Steve.
That's true.
You know, having 16 things being best, that's enough. And drawing with the
He got his point across, and it's all I needed.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you just put that as a reminder.
Yeah.
And that's probably like, remember we talked pre-show and I said, hey, a couple things you get out of the 100 ways to motivate yourself, and you like had a little bit of a like hesitation. There's probably a lot of things you've learned out of there.
Yeah.
But maybe looking at your goal, visualizing every day, that's probably out of there somewhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Persistence is
Yeah.
a big thing.
Yeah, so that's good. I have a question for you, a little bit of a challenging question. So, you know, we're right now...
No, I'm not buying you a house.
Oh, boy. No. It's not like, this partner. No, seriously, it's along the lines of what we're currently educating on. And we're big on out-of-state investing.
Sure.
Right? You do a lot of presentations. We acquired a company called Home Union or Investimate.
Yeah.
You can go there and actually just like you would on your bank account or something, like you can look at properties and bid and acquire an investment property. So question is, like, if you had 10 grand, why not to go to like Indy or Detroit or somewhere where the median price of the house is say 110,000 versus 220,000 or whatever, or is 10,000 this little money? Like, your loan to value needed to be what, like over 20%? Like, why not buy somewhere else where it's cheaper?
So that's a good question. Some of the reasons were, I've got a local network here, right? So of course we bought this before Mynd, was in the picture, or Investment was in the picture, right? And so for me, we know Houston, right? I know I've got a large connection in Houston of investors and everything. So when I put some feelers out of people that I know that were for a rental property, hey, when you get one, let me know. I'm looking for something that I didn't want to get him a property. I didn't want to find a property that had a lot of problems. I didn't want a project for him to get, right? I wanted him to learn the numbers and not learn the working side of it per se, his first one. So I wanted a property that was pretty much, we buy it and it's ready to go for the most part, right? And that's pretty much what we found. Now I was able to do that through connections and through people I knew that were able to find me a deal that had those numbers.
What about the listeners that don't have those connections? People who are just starting out. This is like, so if I'm thinking, if I'm just starting out, like, oh, that's great, Steve, you had all these connections,
right?
Super good. How do I do it?
Well, I think now, look, you've got the investment software. You've got, now the guy that sold us the house, I didn't get a fantastic deal. I didn't do anything. He had a house that he needed to get rid of. I had money that I wanted to buy.
But you knew the type of deal that he needed to get into to qualify for your specific goals, which is not giving him a deal that requires a lot of work.
Yeah, I didn't want to get a major rehab for him, first property, to take a property, go, okay, now we got to knock down walls, we got to do this. I wanted something turnkey. I think to answer the question is that's where education comes in. That's where someone who buys a property needs to be educated in the area, in the prices of all that before they buy something. They need to know, what are they buying? Like, again, could we have bought a total rehab and bought something for pennies on the dollar and done it together? We could have, but then we're trading time for money.
So this is an important extrapolation. I want to stop here and unpack this for a second. I think it was Jay Scott. I think multiple guests talked about you have to have time, money, and what's the other one? There's three things. Specific time and money specifically stick out to me. So if you were willing to invest time and go rehab the house, because if you guys were both, if you had a construction business, for example, and you were like spending summers working there, you guys would probably do a different thing.
Exactly.
You throw in a $5,000 on like a dilapidated house and rebuild it together.
Yeah,
that'd be cool too.
And there's a lot of very successful people that have that as a model that do that, and very well that could have been a way to do it, but that's not my specialty and not my educational knowledge. So I could have, but it also could have turned into a disaster.
For sure.
Because of that, I'm not educated. So for me to do that, that's like me buying a deal in an area that I don't know, in a price point that I'm not familiar with clientele and all that. I'm going out of my circle of knowledge. And so it's kind of, it would be on me. If it failed, it would be, well, if it fails, it's always going to be on you, right? But I wanted him to get, I don't want to say a layup, right? I don't want him to get a softball, but I didn't want him to have a problem where now he's going, I don't like real estate. All this is doing is costing me more money. I wanted to get a, again, I look at real estate, especially for him, is very long term, right? So I wanted him to get a deal that he could get. I mean, I think in this property, I think we rented it we handed it over to Empire, right? And how many times have you seen the house?
Just once.
One time, okay? It's been rented ever since. What are the problems that we've had?
We had to rebuild a fence.
Rebuild a fence when the tenants moved in, and we had an AC call, I think.
Yeah.
That Empire took care of.
AC issues.
But other than that, he's learning from here up, which is what I want him to learn. I want him to learn the education side.
Right.
And again, not that there's anything wrong with rehabbing a house, but that's just not my specialty.
I understand. Like this is really well explained. Thank you, Steve. Because like we have to like people who are listening in different circumstances.
Absolutely.
And so the understanding here is like, look, if for example for me, I'm in San Francisco Bay Area. Like you were in a super investable town. Like
Sure.
why go outside if you were able to make this work?
Right.
You have a network here and all that. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I will probably call you.
Yeah, because
Right?
this is marketable, right?
Right.
But if you were saying,
I
hey,
can't-
Steve,
I
I
can't.
want to get a property and rehab it and do this and do that, and I want to tear it down, I want to rebuild it, I'd be like, I'm not that
I wouldn't
guy.
be calling you.
You wouldn't
Right.
be calling me, right?
But
Yeah.
you'd probably give me a card or give me,
Right.
a phone number.
But to your point, I think is if I was doing that and that was the way that he and I were going to get involved in real estate, then that would be the avenue that we took. And look, at the end of the day, you're not buying it for the rehab. You're buying it for the long-term 30-year goal still. Or 40, 50-year goal for him. So it's still the education of him understanding why are we even buying a rental and how does a rental even work? Like how does that work where you're getting cash flow and every year the tenants renew and the rent goes up and his cash flow goes up, or expenses go up and your cash flow goes down. And so he's learning about finances, and all of a sudden it's like, hey Jett, we had an AC issue this month. It's like, what does that mean? It means no cash flow. You know what I mean? There's a maintenance call, So he's learning about that where he wouldn't have learned. I don't know how you teach that in modern day.
It's invaluable. I mean, kids these days put money in the piggy bank, and I'm just impressed about the savings account. Like I'm thinking I'm like 7 years behind because my daughter is 10 and then the other one is 5. So it's like I better get on it. Because I think they'd love to see the bank balance and like really start understanding like, hey, I can spend it now, get the candy, eat the candy, have nothing. Or I can look at my little app bank account and see that number grow.
Yeah.
But you're right, there's no, you're not earning any money.
You're not earning anything. And that's
So-
kind of what he took out of it was, again, once he realized that the savings account, and that's what he said, we had the conversation was, I'm not going to get anything out of the savings account.
So what's your plan, Jett? Like, let's talk about like, what do you think?
Yeah, that is a good question. What is your plan?
What do you? No, I mean, right now, I know it's like you haven't, lived through the college or anything yet. So, but like, when do you want to get your first Ferrari?
Whenever I can, when I can afford it.
That's what I want to know.
Is it the Ferrari or what is it that you were talking
It's
about?
probably the
It's whatever car I'll be happy with when I can afford it.
interesting. So it's
But
just a car.
Here's a question. So he gets his cash flow. So maybe you can explain a little bit about what you do with your cash flow and how much you get and all that stuff, so that you can break down the actual numbers of. Maybe tell them what we bought the house at, what it was worth, all that
All right.
stuff.
Oh yeah, let's do some math. That'd be great.
All right, let's do some hard numbers. So, the house we got, they said we got it for what, 150?
159.
Yeah, 159, and the house was worth 180. So, for the math I was told for putting a good rent price, we set our rent at $1,500 per month.
What was the down payment?
I think we put.
It's like 20%. Let's just percent.
I think it was about 20%. I believe. Yeah, I think it was about 20%.
What about financing?
I got the financing.
So he's not mentioned on the loan.
He's not mentioned on the loan.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Then there's no way to bring
le-
children into.
Yeah, under 18. Yeah.
Do you have a trust? I know
No.
it's a separate question. Okay.
No.
So this is one of the things that I'm thinking about, like setting up a trust and then having the house in a trust name instead
Yeah.
of your own personal name.
Yeah.
But I'm not an attorney, so. But go ahead, please. So
So
1,500 rent.
1,500 rent, and then since we split it halfway, they would get half the profit, we would get half the profit. So after mortgage, taxes, HOA, all that stuff, it's our total profit's about 500.
Cool.
So then we split it 250.
It's good money.
Yeah, it is. And
But then he's got to break that down into
yeah,
a ratio.
So then I gotta break that down 60-40, where 40 goes into savings and I keep 60. So 60%, $150. I keep that, and then $100 goes back into savings for another house. Say.
Got it.
So I taught him a lesson over the summer. Is he uses his money to buy knives, right? He's big into flipping and all that stuff, and which you were trying to do earlier, not very successfully, but you're trying. But
We'll see about that. Better than you.
Yeah, I don't even try. But so he uses that money to buy and sell knives and do all the stuff that he does. So I took him to a knife show, and he wanted an advancement on his cash flow because he wanted money to go to the rental.
Don't tell me you charged him interest.
I didn't the first time. I did. So he wanted the money to ahead, and so we gave him the money and said, okay, well, this will be the next quarter's worth, and here you go. Here's your money. And then he wanted another advancement on top of it, and I said, okay, here's the deal. We'll loan you again, but that's it. After this, you got to start paying interest on the money that you borrow, because you're defeating the purpose of the waiting for the cash flow to come through. So you want to borrow it, that's fine. Now it's going to go. Now you're going to pay a percentage of interest against what you borrow moving forward. So it was kind of a secondary. Again, that's how people get in debt. They borrow and borrow and borrow, and all of a sudden he could be 6 months behind, going, hey, and now let's say the house goes vacant, or there's a maintenance.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden he's in a bad negative position.
Hey, let me ask you a question. If this house sounds like a screaming deal, like I hope it turns out that way for you, why would somebody sell it? Like you said, a guy had to get rid of it. Like why would somebody do that?
Yeah, he didn't have to. So the guy that I bought it from was a rehabber.
Oh.
He bought it for, I think he told me he bought it for like $130. He rehabbed it, made it basically immaculate, perfect inside. And he called me and he said, hey, here's the deal. This thing is turnkey. It's ready to go.
Got it.
I did all the work. This is my He told me, he said, listen, this is what I bought it for. This is my profit. And this is what I'll sell it to you at. And he said, if you don't want it, I'll throw it on the open market. But he said, I know you're looking for something. He goes, this is perfect. And it's in a great area. That's just going to, it's a solid area that's going up in value. So I'm thinking, this is a good lesson for him, right? And so to me, working with flippers and rehabbers, it works. I mean, the model works.
I just bought a house that was rehabbed. It's awesome. I don't have to do any work.
You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah. That's the same thing with the rental property. So it's very much along those lines. And it just goes to show, like, he got to, he met the guy. We were at closing. We took a picture with him and everything. And, we got a good relationship. And he calls me. He's like, hey, you want another one? I'm like, you want one? He's like, no, not right now. I'm like,
next time he calls, you call me.
Well, there you go.
You've heard it here first.
but that's to me, that's the thing is, he's seeing how it works. Did we pay a little bit more than probably I would have liked to? Yes, because I didn't go find the property myself, right? I didn't do the rehab myself. I could have found the house for $130 myself, put all the time and energy and effort, we have crews, we could have gotten it done. But I'm thinking that's not the lesson I want him to learn. I want him to learn the lesson that you can get this, you're going to pay for it, but the numbers work. The numbers still worked at the price we bought it at.
Hey, Jett, how busy are you? Like, how many hours like a week you go to school? Like, what's your situation?
5 days a week, 7 hours a day. I go to school. After that, I got rugby practice 2 days a week for 3 hours. 3 hours a day.
Have you thought about getting like a part-time job? Like, is that a thing?
Yes, I have been thinking about that more and more recently, and
yes.
Yes. No, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Like right now, like I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but I'm just curious. Like, hey, young people these days, there's different situations, there's different things. Doesn't look like things are just given to you.
No.
Doesn't look like your parents give you they probably got the genes for you. But that's as far as it goes, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, he works for his stuff. He's he understands, he gets it. He's a good kid. He gets great, good in school. I mean, he drums in a band and he does the rugby, and I mean, he's out there doing, he's being a kid, which is what we want him to do.
Yeah.
But he's also learning. I mean, I asked him, and you could ask him about teachers. Your teachers that.
Yeah.
I asked him. I go, do your teachers know that you've? So he's in a class about money. It's called Money Matters.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They have that in high school
Yeah.
now?
They have that.
Yeah, they have that now, and
That's awesome. I never learned that.
No.
It's
Dang it.
it's pretty much just a class that tells you how to invest your money properly, how to finance it correctly, and just how to make sure you don't go in debt.
That's really cool.
It is cool. But I said, do they know like kind of about your history and you owning a rental?
No. That's not their business to know.
All right. So
he doesn't tell them.
what is that's interesting. Let's talk about this for a second. You don't say that your dad is a pilot, and you don't say that you own a rental property. I could see multiple reasons for that, but what are your reasons?
because I don't want to seem like the guy that just shows off everything. It's like, oh yeah, my parents do this, I do this, I'm better than you. I don't want to be that guy.
That's
So
very
I
smart. Humble.
Yeah.
Humble, mind your own business, do your thing. I need to learn from you, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I show up in an M3, and that's how it is, man. It's in a stick shift, and it's very loud.
Look, sometimes you want to show and let people know that you're doing well.
Yeah.
He's more reserved. I mean, he's very reserved. He doesn't talk about it, doesn't say anything about it. I mean, being able to be a pilot, we've traveled all over the world and seen a lot of stuff. He's got to experience a lot. Like you, he's done martial arts. I mean, he's got a 2nd degree black belt. I mean, he's done a lot.
1 degree above me, that's for sure.
Well, he's
awesome.
and so he's done a lot, but he understands the work ethic, and maybe martial arts taught him that. To be humble about it.
Yeah.
That has a lot to do with it. This is what I learned. Like I sold my M3 3 years ago. As soon as I start getting like really into it, and I think it's part of it. I think it's true. There's a little bit to it, but I don't like. I've looked at a lot of people I know and I read about. And I'm avid podcast listener, love podcasts, and I found that like most real, true, successful people are more like you.
Yeah.
Right there. It's not the talk. It's the walk. Right.
Yeah.
You do your thing. If somebody asks. You can free to give advice. You'll discuss it. You'll be transparent and honest. But you're not going to volunteer. You're not going to go,
So let me ask you this: so your friends, do a lot of your friends know that you own a rental, or do you how do you have that conversation with them?
Just a couple of my closer friends know, and that's just, because you hang out, you talk. In
conversation.
Yeah, just in conversation, you talk about your interests and whatnot. So.
But it's not
It's not a I don't make a full conversation over it. It's just a
gloss over,
just kind of gloss over.
So I've got a question. So if you're in high school and kids were to come up and talk to you, and ask you advice, what advice would you give them?
Don't spend your money on stupid things and put it into a savings account.
Start putting money away?
Yeah, just if you think you need the money, you don't need the money. It can wait. Unless it's a big emergency, you don't need it.
Yeah, you're right.
If you're still a dependent, then all the major things are still covered for you.
Learn how to work with your parents.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Hey, if my daughter vacuums, I'm happy to pay. Somebody is gonna wash this table. It's gonna be my time or her time. If it's a glass table, it's a pain in the neck. My wife's gonna sit there in 15 minutes. Maybe she does it, and then she vacuums. She does those things. There are jobs to do in the house, I'd say, that parents are willing to pay for.
Yeah. And the other thing too is
that's money.
He's learned with his knives, right? He buys them, he sells them, makes money, buys them, sells them.
That's a side hustle. There's
so
money involved.
Yeah, that's actually why I am happy that I did take out that advancement earlier. Is that because now I've gotten the collection to be where if I want something else, then I can sell something off again, get that, and then it's just a constant circle of flow.
So he's learning how to use money and start really moving it around and flipping it. No pun intended, flipping it over. But
Dan, how old is your son?
3.
Are you downloading
Dan,
here?
Get him some knives, man. Get him some knives.
Are you recording?
My son has a savings account already.
See?
But it's pretty cool. That's smart.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool to have a collect. This is something that I need to, even myself, get behind. Is get in a hobby where your things are worth something. And knowing so deeply, because I go fishing, I spend money on fishing. I go catch the fish. I eat it. There's really no value in it. But if you were collecting knives or I suppose cars, if you're in that position, that's a lot of money. That's value.
Yeah,
there's asset.
Yeah, that's
asset.
That's one of the big things that I got from Grant Cardone and the Rich Dad Poor Dad Rich Kid Poor Kid books is that always look for opportunity. So that's the first opportunity I saw is that I can sell I can buy these and then sell them for just a little bit more, but that little bit more is still profit. And over time, that piles up to be more and more profit.
That's really good stuff.
Because pretty soon that could become cars.
Yeah.
It could become houses. He's learning the concept of, in my opinion, he's learning the velocity of money. He's learning how to get something. He plays with the knives. He does whatever he does for a while. And then he's like, okay, now there's a better one out. I'm going to sell this one, use the money for that, make a little profit, and keep it rolling, you know?
Be honest with you, like this is sort of the definition rich dad, poor dad. And I'm not saying that you're rich dad or anything like that.
Yeah, I get you.
But like it's like
it's a mindset.
I didn't grow up in I grew up in Minsk, Belarus. Like we're just socialist country. 2 years ago before I was 16, and when I was 16, now it's like a little capitalism, but nobody knows anything, much less your parents.
Sure.
And so I never learned any of that. But when I came to U.S., I got really hungry, started learning. But to me, it's like associating what I'm reading to reality was very, very difficult. Like it's really good to have an example. And then this is interesting because before this show, you couldn't really tell me exactly what you've gotten out of this Grant Cardone book.
Yeah.
And now it's just coming out. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, now I'm like, think about it. Yeah, no, those knives, there's an asset, and I make a profit on those. That's amazing.
Well, and go ahead.
So what I was gonna say is like, just like to kind of help with that is to kind of help with how I saw how I can do this with knives is that I would just like see something in school, I would pick an object and I'm like, all right, what can I do with this? And then I'll just do that with other things like just walking around like in the mall. I look at that and I'm like, all right, what can I do with that? And it's just constant thinking.
That's entrepreneur mindset.
And that's a muscle, right? I mean, you're working that muscle to figure out, okay, is there something here? One day he'll probably see something that I wouldn't see and go, that's a deal right there.
Sure.
I may be looking at a plot of dirt, right, and going, I don't know what he's talking about, and he may see it where it's something there that he's going to go, that's opportunity. And the thing that I always think about is, as entrepreneurs, of all of us out there, grinding and trying to be successful, we're so busy being successful, we forget about them, right? We forget about the kids.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're so busy trying to make it, we kind of forget to show them what we're doing and help them. And that's why, again, I can't say that I did this on purpose, that I realized that he was learning all this, Andy Frisella and all these podcast shows and audiobooks that I'm constantly hearing. But it was. And I remember one time we were in the car and, I take him to the gym. We're going to the gym together. And we had a friend in the car I'm taking him to the gym also. And I think we're listening to Andy Frisella or something, one of his podcasts. And he goes, oh, Jett, this is the guy you were telling me about. So I'm thinking, oh, okay. So he's listening and then he's telling other people about these podcast shows.
Yeah.
So it's resonating.
That's how you win in life. This is really good. This has been really, really, really good. And I think the takeaway for those that are listening is, learn yourself and then invest in your kids and let them invest, not give.
Yeah.
Invest.
Yeah.
Invest. That's very important. I really like your mindset, young man. I think you're going to go places. But for now, to wrap it up, why don't you and I show a trick?
I do not partake in these.
Mind you, I just learned this today. Steve doesn't know how to do any of it.
I do not. I'm waiting for the fingers to be cut. You could maybe get a job at Benihana.
That's big, man.
Maybe Benihana, I'm not sure.
Like Nations was where I grew up, and that's
I don't know that.
nice burger spot. In,
Jett, you didn't give him the sharp one, did you?
No, I didn't.
No.
Okay,
This
good.
is
This is
legitimately
the
legitimately
tester.
not dangerous.
Yeah.
This is the practice knife.
This is pretty cool.
So if you want to find us on iTunes, we are there. We are on Spotify. We're on YouTube. The Mindful Investor Podcast Show. Also, you can find us on Facebook, the Mastermind Real Estate Investment Club. Make sure you find us on both. Like us, join, and subscribe. Everyone, thanks for watching today. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
See ya.